Hi guys, welcome to Metal Wani. Today we're talking to Adam from Tribulation. Hello.
Hello, this is Adam.
How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Working intensely on the album.
So you once said that you don't force yourself into something but prefer to let things come your way and see how everything turns out. On the other hand, you've become famous for breaking your own rules and always creating a new sound on each album. So how was it this time? Did you go for a new sound, push yourself, or prefer to play it safe?
I would never say playing it safe, but I think at least that the material on the new album is more in line with the Children of the Night than well, it's I think the progression or the change isn't necessarily as dramatic as it has been in the past, but there is still a change, absolutely.
Does it follow any concept? Does it have a story?
Not really. We've never really had a concept at all, except for the overall arching concept of the band itself, which should be fairly obvious to anyone who's ever heard us or seen a picture of us. But I can say that this is something I have to say that is evolving as we create the album. So we didn't start by saying let's go for this and then end up at the same place where we wanted to go. What we did this time was that we were aiming in a certain direction, even though we knew all along that we wouldn't end up where we were aiming to, if you understand what
Yes.
I'm saying. Because we don't really work like that. We try at least to trust our intuition. So if there is a sudden change, we're gonna try that change. But what we said early on this year, actually, before we had started compiling the songs and getting some structure to them, was that we were aiming to. We always work in images or in colors. So I guess you can say that the Formulas of Death, the second album, was it was a green and black album from the start, and it was kind of deeply in the forest, I'd say, whereas The Children was more black and white. And what we were aiming for with this album was what we saw in front of us when we started was an old, I guess, haunted house, and it's not really deep in the forest, but it's not in the city either. It's somewhere in between. So if you say that the Formulas of Death was a forest album and that The Children of the Night was more of a city album, I'd say the new one is somewhere in between. And in some cases, we actually reached the goal of getting into that haunted house. But I would say that it took a turn and possibly entered something more of an old Gothic house instead of just a house made out of tree. That's a haunted house. I understand that this is quite abstract, but that's how we think. That's how we talk to each other when we are creating this. So that's what I'm saying. That's why I'm saying this to you.
Yes, no, I understand very well, because I remember that you once mentioned that you were in a way inspired by certain films, photos, art, but that you're never paying a blank tribute to it, but still always just capturing the atmosphere of it.
Yes, exactly.
But I'm just curious, what did you find inside that haunted house?
Well, we found that that it was more made out of stone rather than decaying wood. And I think gravitated towards something church-like, not necessarily a church, but something church-like. And I would say that we got more immersed in that religious feeling, or the actually Catholic feeling, more than we imagined, or more than we were aiming to, at least. So the haunted house was still there, but it was made out of stone, and it was a bit more of a sacred house. But hopefully you can tell that it's not a Christian
Yeah.
album, of course, because we are not Christian. But we still found that room within the house. That's I guess I shouldn't say that we were surprised, because we've always stumbled upon that room in all of our records. So, but we I guess we wound up in the same place again, but in a different. Maybe it's been renovated, or rather, maybe this is actually the room in the way that it was before it got renovated, because this album and the music on it feels older to me than our previous music.
Really?
In a way, yes. More medieval and more 19th century, or my conception of the 19th century, of course, because I obviously wasn't around. But yeah.
Spontaneously, it sounds like a really evil version of Ghost to me.
Yeah, I understand why it would sound like that, but I wouldn't say that we're in the same realm.
No, of course not.
Yeah.
But I mean, you've come a very long way since the release of Children of the Night, and you're still such a young band, constantly evolving, not just your style but also your qualities as a musician. So what did you learn within the last years, and also within the last month, while sitting in that house?
Well, it was a challenge. It was. I can only speak for myself, I think. But to me, it was more challenging now to write the music than it ever has been before. But it worked out well anyway. I think what we noticed, or what I noticed at least, was that you can tell that we've actually been playing a lot.
Yeah.
We are better musicians than we were a while ago. And not necessarily because we've been practicing, but because we've been playing so much, and you could tell, even though we always take our time with recordings, and we did this time too, we evolve, of course, we get better, and certain things come easier, while other things are more difficult now than ever. I'd say, especially with writing the music, for me at least.
So in which kind of situation do you actually write music? I guess people imagine you sitting there in a dark room with your candle or something, but sometimes it might just be on tour at the gas station getting the perfect inspiration.
Yes, well, maybe I do. No, no, but what I've been doing in the past has been to try to make the whole process as unconscious as possible. That I've stayed away from sitting down with my guitar to try to, create some cool riffs or whatever. Nothing wrong with that, of course, but that's not the way I've been doing it. And after a while, and it was the same thing this time. It just comes in waves to me. I can go without coming anywhere for weeks, and then all of a sudden I have a few days or maybe a week where I constantly find myself having melodies or beats or riffs or whatever it is in my head. So then what I usually do is that I just record them on my phone. And then when I've been gathering all of these recordings and ideas, I try to sit down and sort them out and lay down the puzzle. And what I've been doing in the past is that I've mostly been doing this on my own. And in the band, as it has always been, I write my music and Jonathan writes his music. So we are both writing the songs. So I'm not the only songwriter in the band. So I can only speak for myself now. But what I did differently this time was that I got help from Johannes and from our new drummer Oscar.
Oh.
Mainly because we didn't have all the time in the world, and when I write songs, it usually takes me a while because I don't record demos. I don't really understand software that well. So I do it in my head, and that takes time for me. So this time I couldn't really do that, and Oscar knew the softwares a lot better than I did. So he was able to help me with that as sidekick, so to speak. And we also invited Johannes because I wanted his take on the songs too. And I mean he's always had his take on every song in the past as well, but he did more this time. And that was both a challenge and something that worked out really well, and something we had to do, and something that actually worked in the end. So this time we actually did record demos of my songs, and demos before we showed the whole band the song, so to speak, and before we started rehearsing them. And that was the biggest change for me this time, to be cooperating more. Even though I wrote most of the music, I still had Johannes and Oscar with me during this process.
So you are three people sitting together and writing, and Jonathan sitting alone and writing?
Yeah, and Jonathan would do that. Because he's been recording demos on his own for a long time, and he likes to work alone, which is great. We whatever you can do whatever you want as long as the songs are great. And what we did this time was that because we like to make point, I guess, or a thing to cooperate in the band, so that if someone has an idea, we share that idea with everyone. And what Jonathan did was that he was on his own, but then he would send demos, and we would comment, and then he would change something, and he would send it again, and we would maybe say something else, and his songs changed a bit after we've heard them and said what we thought about them. And I guess that's what made all of these songs, my songs and Jonathan's songs, into Tribulation songs, not just the two of us.
He also released his solo EP in the meantime, that singer-songwriter music. Did this actually influence the songs that he wrote for Tribulation, with being either a bit more softer or rather being heavier because he already got rid of the softer stuff?
I don't know, honestly.
Okay.
But what I can say about the album in general is that I think it's actually heavier than Children of the Night. Not only heavier, but that's one aspect of it.
I guess you did the artwork again yourself, both of you?
Yes, I did the sketch for the cover, as we've usually done it. I have an idea, and Jonathan realizes that idea for every one of us. And we did the same thing now. I did a sketch of what I saw, and he made his own version of my idea. So he made the cover, and I'm working with Jonathan now on the layout. That's what we're doing now, actually.
So the cover is a church in the woods or a house? No.
No, but well, in a way it is. You'll find out.
Cool.
You'll find out.
So the recording was done at the Soundtrack Studios where back then ABBA recorded. It's just actually a pretty interesting choice. Why did you go for this?
A coincidence, actually. Oh. We only recorded the drums in Soundtrack.
Oh, okay.
But we knew some people there, and that's why we recorded there. And we wanted a big room for the drums. We did the same on the Children of the Night. We also recorded the drums in a separate studio, but this time we wanted an even bigger room. Just to be sure that we could make whatever we wanted out of it. If we wanted the drum sound to have that big room, then we could have that. And if we ended up wanting a closer sound to the drums, we could also get that. So we kind of made sure we could do basically whatever we wanted to it. So we chose a really proper studio to do that. And we had some contacts at Soundtrade, and that's why we ended up there. And it was very cool, actually, because of the history with ABBA. And I mean, the final countdown is recorded there, and so on and so on.
And I mean, the production also played a big role for the charm of your last album, having that very raw atmosphere and vintage sound. Did you also go for it this time, or is it completely different?
It's different, but I don't know. I don't really know what with a vintage sound is. As strange as that may sound, but to me, the Children of the Night to me just sounds like a good sound. But I guess it's, if you compare it to present day metal albums, maybe it is vintage. So I'm sure the new one is vintage. It's definitely not the same sound. That's got a lot to do with our producer, because this is also the first time we worked more closely with a producer. On the Children of the Night, we had Ola Ersfjord recording it, and he acted as a producer to some extent, but not really that much. But Kuni, Martin Ehrenkrona, as is known, he was a producer on this album, so he's also had his hand in both the song structures and especially the sound. And I would say that it was a meeting of Tribulation and of him, a meeting of two quite different sounds, because he comes from the metal scene too, but he also comes from punk. He's got a little bit, his preferences are a little bit rawer than ours, since we come from luxury sounding Iron Maiden and Morbid Angel productions, as he comes So I think that was a good place to meet. Maybe that actually helped making the album sound heavier this time.
And I think actually it fits quite well, a little touch of punk. That's gonna work pretty well.
Sure, yeah, absolutely, and that's not really new to us either. In the beginning, we always saw our live shows as rock and roll / punk shows, basically. So this it's not really a new thing for us, but it's a new take on the present day form of Tribulation, at least.
All right, thank you so much, Adam.
Okay, that was it.
Yeah.
Well,